I'm excited to introduce to you Michael Towers. He is the CEO of Speaking of Your Success, and is a subject matter expert in the areas of leadership, mental health, and empathy. We heard a lot about that today. Michael is passionate about utilizing his knowledge to improve the lives of people who are struggling and suffering. He has earned degrees in substance abuse counseling and psychology, and has been a mental health and addictions counselor for 2 decades, some 20 years. He lives in Baltimore, Maryland, and with his family, which includes not 1, not 2, but 3 German Shepherds, Avon Barksdale, Stringer Bella, and Kima Greg are the names of his 3 German Shepherds. And in the words of Ricky Ricardo, Michael, you have some explaining to do. With no further ado, please welcome Michael Towers.
Thank you. Well done. Well done. So the explaining, who has seen the show The Wire, HBO? 4 hands, 5 hands? It is Minnesota. That's your homework, HBO, The Wire. I believe Harvard did a couple semesters solely on The Wire. So I did want to comment about a couple things. This morning's keynote was amazing, and it brought up some thoughts that I had. The first one was just, I love HR professionals, and how that showed up this morning was I was thinking about the AV team, because I've been in audiovisual production for 29 years, and that's how I came and intersected with SHRM, which you'll find out shortly. But I was running a camera last week, as a matter of fact. And it's always also, Mr. Cameraman, been a thing of mine that if I ever became a professional speaker, I would try to be so fast that you couldn't catch up. But empathy and, just sympathy for having to chase people around. The first time I learned how to use a camera, it was a Jazzercise convention. So that's what I had to keep steady. But when you think about workplace mental health, I just want to talk about the last 24 hours for the AV team, right? Maple Lane, they pushed in the gear at 10 o'clock at night, had a production meeting, loaded in this show at 3:30 a.m. If you're not like a trauma nurse like my mom or a doctor like my stepdad, I think third in line is like audiovisual production for the pressure that you have to undergo, right? If you screw any of this stuff up, you would lose a relationship, maybe lose some money. And 3:30 in the morning, they've been up doing this so that we could have this today. And they have to stay awake until 5. So, yeah. And that right there leads into the reason why, well, I would have brought a lot of this up anyway. But when I thought about it, 29 years, I've now heard an audience clap for the HR professionals, the audiovisual professionals. This was the 4th time. AV guys are like third-rate citizens. Like, don't touch the food. Like, we're like mushrooms, right? Feed us crap and just keep us in the dark. You never hear or want to pay attention to an AV guy until like things go wrong. But I knew almost as soon as the keynote this morning said it that you guys were going to clap. Because you guys don't consider anyone third-rate citizens. I mean, HR for me, really, I've been told to leave jobs, by HR and said, don't ever come back, more than I actually have professional speaking engagements for HR organizations. So kind of that's my background there, but you just, beautiful people, you don't see through or past anyone. You stay mindful and present no matter who you encounter. One of the things that the keynote talked about was that sometimes we hire someone and then they appear completely different than the person that we hired. I believe the line was, we hire for somebody for what they know, and then we fire them for who they are. And that couldn't be my story more. There are times where I've lost jobs due to untreated or unchecked mental illness, and I would go home and I just didn't understand, why did it have to be this way? There was so much promise, I had so much potential, and there I am, fired again. And I can remember one particular incident. I don't do anything in the middle. It's all the way. And I was doing an event at the Andrew Mellon, I think it was Carnegie Mellon Auditorium in Washington, D.C. And it was earlier in the day. I used the restroom, and as I was approaching the restroom, a security guard started to say, "Hey, you, hey, hey, you, hey, you." And I didn't respond because I didn't know there was a dog behind me. And so I went into the bathroom, but when I came out, the security guard was in my face saying, "Did you hear me talking to you?" And I said, "Well, I heard someone talking. I just didn't really think you were addressing a human." And that's kind of my deal, issues with authority, probably borderline conduct disorder or something along those lines, always pushing back since I was 6 years old. My dad, it was neat, whenever I would be like hanging off Ronald McDonald's statue in McDonald's, my dad would come over and say, "Michael, do you see any of the other kids doing that right now?" And that's how he let me know that I was behaving inappropriately. But this particular night, when we went to load out the show, much like Maple Lane will do later, the security guard was out there starting some trouble with one of my technicians, and she was throwing equipment left and right. And I just came out smiling, and I said, "Hey, I see it's not just me you have a problem with, it's everybody, huh?" And she turned around, she grabbed her gun and unholstered, had her hand on her gun and told me, "Sir, you are threatening my life right now." And I tell you that because of my inability to engage this security guard that was obviously, I could identify as a counselor at 6 p.m., she was having a hard day. What it led to was a suspension from a company, a beautiful company called Condor Communications in Rockville. And I got suspended, and I eventually didn't want to keep the job after that, but I disappointed beautiful people that I had a great relationship with due to, I would say, mental illness shows up in many ways, and the inability to think your actions through or your thoughts are definitely one of them. So I was curious as to why I would have gotten put second after the opening keynote. I find out now there was a grand master plan for the way they navigated this agenda, but that's a bona fide professional. The content was amazing. But in sitting there, I realized that when I spoke at New Mexico a couple weeks ago, SHRM, New Mexico, and the only thing I was afraid of was not whether or not I would be fearful of this stage. I learned how to speak professionally in front of court judges, and there's no other higher pressure, I feel like, speaking arrangement than like begging someone for your freedom. So I wasn't afraid of that. My fear was, would I be able to look you guys in the eye? Would shame and some of the things that I've done to disappoint people like you keep me from being able to make eye contact? And listening to the morning keynote, what I realized is this is divinely planned out, that I would hear that there's another side to this. There's a side that you guys have so many things to do, an overwhelming job, and then you have to wrestle and wrangle people like me, right? And so I'm here to help you make a difference in the lives of the people around you, and help you help hurting people. So with that, I'll get started. In 2017, I was separated and getting divorced. At the time, I was working for a trade union, but it was toxic and unhealthy, and I needed a new start. I took a job as the recreation coordinator at a group home for high-risk youth. The job paid a lot less than I could have made in other roles, but it provided stability and wasn't as stressful. My heart was hurting, and I needed to heal. Naturally, I didn't mention my marital issues in the job interview. Also, I'm the type of person that no matter what's going on, I try to remain happy and joyful and positive. No one knew the extent of my struggles. My coworkers were oblivious to the state of my mental health. I shot out of the gate strong. I enrolled the kids in a basketball league and coached them to a 13-0 record. No credit to me at all. These kids were great. These kids weren't used to winning, though. They had mental health issues, they were juvenile offenders, or they were abandoned. Some of them were all three. I taught the kids baseball and hockey. Is a hockey fan? I think we all heard that. I took them to the movies. I bought exercise equipment for them, and we had our first gym in our 150-year history at the children's home. The kids loved me. The kids loved Mr. Mike. I was off on Saturday morning, so my friends and I played basketball in the gym. Once staff realized that I was down there, they started to send the kids down unsupervised. I got frustrated at the extra duties because I had to watch the kids off the clock. I emailed my supervisor, and I didn't get a response. I reported it in person, but it wasn't rectified. So I decided to do something that makes HR cringe. I made my own schedule. When the kids showed up, I punched in and I left early. I was written up for that. My superiors were great at correcting employees, but horrible at correcting institutional shortcomings. One night after a game, I took the kids to dinner. I was told that I needed prior approval to do that, and even though it was permissible, I wouldn't be reimbursed. I was broke, making less money to be there, and I'm feeding their kids. I became resentful, and my demeanor changed. I stopped going to the cafeteria and walking the hallways saying hi to everyone. I isolated. I hurt myself one day running with the kids and fought with HR over the doctor's orders. I was told to rest, but I was written up for not coming to work. Despite the success I was having with the kids and the money I was donating, I was fired. My supervisor and the HR director watched me clean out my office and escorted me off campus. They told me to never come back. I was thrown out like a piece of garbage. The kids thought I was a superhero, but administration thought I was a problem. I wasn't a bad person. I had mental health issues. My heart was broken going in, and my soul was crushed walking out. Here are some questions to consider while I give this presentation. Did it have to end that way? Is there something someone could have done to intercede? Can you identify any warning signs in this story? So my name is Michael Towers, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity to present to Twin Cities SHRM. I'm a mental health counselor, and I've battled mental illness my whole life. There's been a major disruption in the job market, and your chapter has commissioned me to use my knowledge and experience to inspire you to make an impact in the lives of the people around you. Today, I want to educate you on the realities of mental health, present a solution that will improve employee wellness, and empower you to be the change your organization needs. Let's take a look at how we spend our time here on Earth. We spend 90,000 hours at work, 3,600 hours laughing, 4,300 hours exercising, and we'll get into this a little bit, the mental health benefits of exercise are profound. 31,200 hours eating. I do more exercise so I can eat. The Fruit Loops with marshmallows is a thing I found out recently during COVID. 42,000 hours we spend with family and friends. And this is a good thing. If we have to work 90,000 hours of our life, we should make sure we are doing it right. Work should be life-giving, not sucking your will to live. These hours should be fruitful and not something you have to endure. By the way, we spend 94,000 hours on our phone. Makes me wonder how much time at work we spend playing on our phones and how much of our family time is spent doing this. I'll save that discussion for another day. Today, mental health is a major issue. We must recognize the significant impact it has on the workplace. According to the National Institute of Mental Disorders, 25% of Americans 18 or older suffer from a diagnosable mental health disorder. Many people suffer from more than one mental health disorder. Mental health disorders account for several of the top causes of disability. In kindergarten, I brought a calendar to school, and my teacher would put on a smiley face or a frowny face to communicate to my parents how my behavior was that day. I remember thinking that I was different because none of the other kids had to do that. My behavior was so challenging that I had to have a CAT scan to find out why. I remember laying in that loud, scary machine thinking, how messed up am I? I was diagnosed with ADD. My mom made me go to therapy and take medication. All I wanted to do was play outside with my friends, and instead I'm in an office with some weird guy talking about my feelings and punching a pillow. I had to see the school nurse for my medication, and the other kids would call me crazy or freak. And stigma regarding mental health is real. By the 8th grade, I refused to go to therapy and take medication anymore, and I was suspended 23 times that year. My parents almost put me in a residential school on the grounds of a mental hospital because they just didn't know what to do with me. Mental illness caused problems in high school, led to issues with alcohol, and was the reason that I dropped out of college. It affected my relationships and made me borderline unemployable. One night in West Baltimore, I was shot at because I negotiated a drug deal, and I'm not good at that. My illness was escalating, and the consequences were getting worse. At 23 years old, my life was a disaster. I didn't know what to do, so I joined the Army. I thought it sounded great. I thought 3 squares a day, regular exercise, and discipline could help me. In 5 weeks, I got in 2 fights, was arrested for assault, shoved a drill sergeant, and was hospitalized. Needless to say, I was thrown out of the Army. I couldn't cut it in college, and I couldn't cut it in the Army. The Army experience earned me my second diagnosis, bipolar. Now I have a behavior disorder and a mood disorder. A few of the symptoms are engaging in risky behavior and trouble controlling my actions. It didn't shock me. I lived life by ready, fire, and then aim. I didn't have an aimer. Shortly after I returned home, I was arrested and was facing 33 years in jail. At my trial, the judge shared that his college roommate got in a shootout with cops outside of their dorm, and he had bipolar. He said, if you don't get help for your disorder, you will die a violent death, or I'm going to throw you in jail for the rest of your life. He sentenced me to 5 years in the Department of Corrections, but he suspended all of it. That pause between 5 years and I suspend all of it, right, before that gavel came down, whew, felt like an eternity. The judge did mandate that I see a psychiatrist, and his grace would change my life forever. At my first appointment, I told my psychiatrist, I don't want any medications that are going to take away my edge. He said, Michael, you're a felon, you sleep on your dad's couch, and you're unemployable. Tell me more about your edge. He told me that he's never seen a bipolar snap out of control as fast as mine does. I was a tornado that damaged everyone that got in the way of what I wanted. My life was pain, wasted potential, and defeat. I flashed back to every teacher, principal, employer, and judge, and they all said the same thing. How could you do this? You're not a bad person. For the first time in my life, I made the connection that all of my problems were a product of mental illness. And at that moment, I accepted my condition and surrendered to the fact that I would need to treat it for the rest of my life. And now, I'm fulfilling my dream as a professional speaker for the bestest, I don't know if that's, I didn't look that up, I don't think it's a word, HR organization in the world. And thank you. And it says a whole lot more about you than it does about me. I promise you that. And I'll be able to share that shortly. 90,000 hours is why I want to present to HR professionals. Since people spend most of their time at work, we can make the biggest impact in the workplace. Empowering you to lead better can have a cascading effect that can be exponentially powerful. You can be change agents, and by educating organizational strategies to address mental health issues, employees will become healthier, which will in turn improve the health of their family and the people around them. Together, we can make the world a better place. Here's a look at the toll that burnout and stress has on employee mental health. According to Mental Health America, 9 in 10 employees report that their workplace stress affects their mental health. Stress causes 1 million employees to miss work every day. 4 in 5 employees feel emotionally drained from their work, which is an early sign of burnout. 60% are not receiving adequate support from supervisors to help manage stress. And only 5% of employees strongly agree that their employer provides a safe environment for people who live with mental illness. Workplaces exist that aren't supportive or safe, but I bet they still want 110% effort. According to the World Health Organization, harassment and bullying at work are commonly reported problems and can have a substantial adverse impact on mental health. What? They meant the 7th grade, right? Not at work. I was bullied for my big ears, overbite, thick glasses. It was so bad I didn't want to go to school. If you're aware of workplace bullying at your organization, please do everything in your power to stop it. Look at me. Who would want to bully that kid? The American Institute of Stress reported work-related stress causes 120,000 deaths per year. Companies are not only causing burnout and failing to provide support, they're killing their employees. And as you can see, the pandemic has had a profound impact on mental health in the workplace. 1 in 4 employees report feeling down, depressed, or hopeless, often annually in the US, on work productivity loss due to depression. 41% of employees feel burnt out, drained, or exhausted from their work. And 37% of employees reported having done nothing to cope with these feelings, and only 7% have reached out to a mental health professional. This last one keeps me up at night. As a mental health professional, it breaks my heart to know that 93% of people that are hurting aren't doing anything to cope. Why do you think that is? I believe the stigma of mental illness keeps people from reaching out for help. People fear that if they utilize their EAP, it'll be reported to their employer. And if they speak up about their stress, emotions, and mental health, it could negatively affect their job or they could get fired. Then there's the idea that employees are supposed to leave their issues at home, so they stuff the pain down and suffer silently. We need to blow this paradigm up. Everyone wants to work in a stress-free environment that's conducive for their well-being. No one wants to burn out. No one wants to work for a company that's detrimental to their mental health. By now you've heard about the Great Resignation. In 2021, 39 million people quit their jobs. When it first became a thing, all the articles I was reading attributed to people who were accustomed to remote work not wanting to return to the office. The main reasons were autonomy and employees wanting a more flexible approach. Writers also cited higher salaries as well. I was one of the first people on LinkedIn challenging this narrative. My position was that the lockdown for a lot of employees was more of an escape from workplaces that were harming them. The lockdown severely affected the mental well-being of many people. Many found it hard to cope with the isolation, and others found it hard to deal with job loss and financial insecurity. People reported feeling agitated, stressed, restless, and sleepless. Medical News Today reported that cases of depression in the US had tripled. Another survey revealed increased alcohol and drug use among people in the US. They likely turned to substances to relieve pandemic-induced anxiety and depression. For those fortunate enough to be able to keep their jobs and work from home, discovered it was less stressful and more creativity-inducing. Working at a more human pace was ideal. What we are finding now is that employees working from home are struggling too. Look, isolation and burnout are major factors. Our daily interactions are shown to reinforce our sense of well-being and belonging in a community. Research has shown that isolation can be twice as harmful to physical and mental health as obesity. Lines between personal and work life blur for remote workers. So what can we make of all this? I believe that an employee's mental health should be the highest priority. That no matter what, where, when, and how an employee works can give life or take it away. Whether it's at home or an office, a couch or your desk, in pajama pants or a suit. And we all know who you are. My wife's one of them. Whether you're a healthcare worker, government employee, or HR professional, your mental health matters. And if you want to be happy, then your mental health matters.
El área socioemocional de los niños y esa parte. Perdón.
Will be done by ground carriers, so people won't be getting their medication dropped out of the sky into their mailbox just yet, but the companies do say they will scale up the program if it is successful, guys.
Very cool. We love it, Will. Thank you.
I think it really depends on just like the ethical standards of the profession. And in reality, I've heard that social work kind of has very high standards and like good standards in terms of things, and that oftentimes people of other professions don't have.
Hold on.
What happened?
I saw nothing.
Oh my God.
Jennifer.
Obviously,
Wait, what's his name?
and do stop me if you need to crack on. Do tell us.
Wait, what's his name?
My name is Christian.
What's his name?
His name's Christian.
Christian.
Yes.
That's deciding whether it comes up to where Mummy wants it to go.
Oh right. Where does
Wait,
Mummy
where
want
do
it
you
to
want
go?
it to
I think just on that shelf is great. Thank you.
I'm so sorry.
Already do it. Kids do it. YouTube kids do it, and the BBC are also now embracing this. Why? And apologise for my cat's tail. Why are you not doing this by default? Rocco, could you tell them?
Oh, that's great. If we're going to spend 90,000 hours at work, shouldn't it be fulfilling? Surely it shouldn't be a place we dread going to. Workers are unified, whether it's in person or remote, about what matters to them. More than 80% of employees would consider quitting their job for a position that focused more on employees' mental health. New data has come in on the Great Resignation. Employees are leaving because of general lack of care on part of the employer. 40% left because of burnout. 20% don't feel valued. 16% said there was no support for their well-being. And money isn't the only issue. 23% said they were making the same, and 13% said they were making less. Making less. Well, if workplace toxicity was an issue at their old job, they are taking less money to get away. Not all employees are leaving for better opportunities. Many are leaving jobs without having a new one, choosing unemployment over working for the wrong employer. I wonder how many people out of work had jobs that made them sick, and because of the lockdown, got sicker. And now they can't stomach the idea of going back to a job that made them sick in the first place. Too many bosses are obsessed with problems and profits, so they punish their people. Employees have had enough, and employees have a choice. Smart employers that appeal to a person's sense of meaning and belonging will attract and retain employees at a far greater degree than one who throws money at them while treating people poorly. So what's the solution? Addressing stress, burnout, and conditions that negatively affect your employees' mental health centers around two core issues: culture and leadership. Transforming workplace culture is paramount, but it requires an approach that's proactive, not reactive. Great leaders are in the position to be instruments of change. But because of stigma, you won't always know who needs help. So how can you feed and water the whole garden so none of your flowers wilt? The CARES approach. As a professional speaker, apparently you have to come up with cute acronyms. I made that one. My wife did not make that. That took me 4 hours to get that A in that heart, the right. Definitely not a productive endeavor. The CARES approach is proactive and encompasses the leadership principles and organizational practices to transform any environment into one that is conducive for optimal mental health for all employees. The C is for culture. Positive workplace culture is a product of organizational practices and leadership principles. Encourage a team-oriented structure. This can help employees buy in and come together as people rally around a common objective. It inspires collaboration and draws great ideas from all levels of staff. Team culture is a reflection of the leader's strengths. They should instill their professional personality and develop employee collaboration. The leader's enthusiasm inspires team energy, and their self-discipline serves as a guide to channeling that power. Keep expectations clear. It is critical to explain to the team what is expected of them 100% of the time. 5 must-have expectations are being honest always, personal accountability, professional commitment, sincere conflict resolution, and pride in always doing their best. So I have 24 years experience in a 12-step fellowship, and I can tell you, when we, and again, when I talk to y'all, it's like I'm talking to myself, because you guys get this stuff. Personal accountability, sincere conflict resolution. When you do those things on a day-to-day basis, when you clean up your side of the street, and it is about that other person's side of the street, what happens? Things stay well. You walk out of work, you come back, you get things back on an even keel, and you keep going forward. Things don't linger or fester in an environment like this. It's important, but the leader must live this out for it to stick. Make caring part of the job. Building team unity on foundations of respect, responsibility, patience, and honesty produces people who care. This builds positive attitudes and a winning team culture. Acknowledge good work. 3,000 years ago, Solomon said, "Worry weighs a person down, an encouraging word cheers a person up." On the contrary, cutting critical comments can hurt a person's spirit, but affirming words bring renewal and hope. My love language is words of affirmation. For someone like me, the right words make a difference. Read The 5 Languages of Appreciation in the Workplace by Gary Chapman and learn how to care for your employees the right way. The A is for allocate. Companies can provide services and implement systems to better the lives of their employees. Free mental health assessment tools, clinical screenings by a professional who can make a referral if appropriate, on-site counseling, educational materials about signs and symptoms of mental health, regularly bring in EAP reps for the plan to present on the benefits and emphasize the mental health services. 7 to 10% of employees utilize their EAP. We talked about some of those reasons, but if you can have an open and consistent ongoing conversation with your EAP rep to be able to demonstrate to employees that you have 23 online counseling appointments to your avail, you don't even have to leave the house. That'll start to reduce some of the stigma and break the cycle, I assure you. I love what the opening keynote said. I had put a weekly newsletter and always include healthy suggestions for optimal mental health, but she was absolutely right. I don't know that I'm reading it, but the video idea sounds great. Why not have somebody at the office just have a 2-minute wellness check? The thing that we did for mindfulness, the meditation piece this morning, amazing. You know, I'll get into some of the benefits of just breathing exercises. And to be able to do that, let's say in a 2-minute video where you could do a guided meditation and send that out to your employees is humongous. And I assure you that by creating safe spaces that employees can go to relax and de-escalate any tension and stress that they have will foster a workplace that's more focused, present, and mindful. By implementing any of those strategies, you are communicating to everyone that you care about their mental health. 79% of employees are likely to stay at a company that provides high-quality mental health resources. The R is for realign how the company operates. Companies need to be intentional when choosing their leaders, orienting new employees, and managing their current workforce. Hire people who are vulnerable, possess empathy, and are looking to make a difference in the lives of the people around them. The right attitude is contagious, and so is the wrong one. Hire and place employees in roles they are passionate about and will perform their best in. Impress upon new employees that they are vital because of the talent and gifts they bring to the organization. This will demonstrate how the work of each person matters. Make sure roles are clearly defined and to the best of your ability, properly position your people. Now, I know you guys are the ones that have just suffered and are still suffering through the Great Resignation or the Great Reset. So to say things like that, like you can just handpick perfect people, is a little insensitive. But it's idealistic, yes, but you can do it, and it will change everything. Be flexible. If there are workers who are doing an excellent job working from home, let them stay there. My wife works for a government organization, and the Department of Commerce decided that they're going to come back to work because of the optics, right? It's going to look good. If everybody goes back to work, it's going to communicate that things are getting back on track. But now you have all these cars hitting the road and driving and commutes, and I just don't understand. If they're good, leave them at home. Offer hybrid work options instead of the traditional 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. Consider schedules like 4 10-hour days so that employees can have a 3-day weekend. Make employee mental health the priority. Evaluate the success of the company by assessing the mental health of each employee. Utilize diagnostic tools and evaluate whether your workplace is healthy and why or why not, and adjust accordingly. The E is for empathy. Empathetic leadership means having the ability to understand the needs of others, being aware of their feelings, and seeing things from their point of view. The leader imagines themselves in the employee's position and communicates their desire to understand and appreciate their perspective. An exceptional leader asks themselves, if I had to work here, what would I want the experience to look like? The S is for serve. Servant leadership focuses on people. Leaders support their employees to meet their work and personal goals. It's important to select leaders who are passionate and have a heart for leadership. And the growth and well-being of their employees is their purpose. Serve your employees, and they will serve you. Your employees and colleagues want the same things that you and I want: to be acknowledged and encouraged. We all have a strong desire to belong and to feel valued. The CARES approach leads to greater motivation and satisfaction as people feel heard and appreciated. Employees will have purpose and perform their work passionately. This leads to better employee engagement, and everyone will enjoy coming to work. When a company is supportive, cultivates wellness, there's better performance, increased productivity, and less missed work. And less burnout and stress lead to more creativity, better quality, and organizational success is greater. Employee self-care should be offered and encouraged. It should be modeled by leadership. The results are improved mental health for everyone in the organization. Creating a healthy workplace is good for business. The CARES approach, it's just a cute suggestion, but so is the ripcord on a parachute. And if you want your company to thrive, you'll pull it. I'm devoted to SHRM because one of their highest priorities is addressing workplace mental health and wellness. I love what Executive Director Wendy Sastrom said. The HR profession has always had a role in addressing mental health and wellness, and there is an unprecedented need for their leadership and vision. You, are committed to helping HR professionals and people managers provide the best possible support for businesses' most treasured resources, our employees, our people. It's amazing. I am a SHRM Workplace Mental Health Ally. It's a certificate through PsychHub and SHRM that equips professionals to understand critical mental health topics and identify appropriate approaches to help. It's a deep dive into solutions to prepare you to help someone that's hurting. And improving workplace wellness pays dividends. For every dollar put in a scaled-up mental treatment for common mental health disorders, there's a return of $3 to $10. 67% of leaders cited improvement in productivity when offering mental health support to their employees. I want to tell you a secret. The cost of changing company culture, serving your workforce, and improving your company's position doesn't even compare to the increase in capital you will see when you invest in your people. Making mental health a priority equals employees who are healthier, hardworking, and results in higher profits. When I was a freshman in college, I had no idea what I wanted to study. Everyone else was going to college, so I thought that's what I was supposed to do too. I went into my first semester with no direction and little motivation. I think a lot of it had to do with marijuana. Now, I know no one in this room smokes marijuana. HR professionals do not smoke marijuana. Some of the AV guys do. Some of them do. I'm not saying any of these guys, but I know what I did. I was like a puppy dog running on the linoleum floor, right? A whole lot of activity, but no forward progress. I dropped out my third year. My friends are going to be account executives and lawyers, and I couldn't have been further from my goals. I made the connection that as long as I drank and smoked marijuana, I was never going to achieve my dreams. So I got sober and I tried again. My number one focus was college, but my number one problem was my ability to focus. Untreated mental illness wreaking havoc again. That semester, I took a full medical withdrawal. I sat outside of the admin building on a bench and cried. I thought, I don't understand. I quit drinking. It was supposed to be different this time. I felt like a failure, and I had no hope. With my bipolar treated, I tried again 10 years later. This time I was successful and became a mental health and addiction counselor. I began my journey of helping hurting people heal. One of my clients' names was Byron. When Byron was 14 years old, he committed a serious crime. He deserved some jail time, but he was young, and after a couple years in juvenile detention, he could come back from it. He was prosecuted under the Hobbs Act, and at 14 years old, was tried as an adult and sentenced to 20 years in jail. They labeled him a super predator, and because of that, he couldn't jail with other youth. So he spent 4 years in solitary confinement, 23 hours a day in a dark cell with nothing but the Bible. By the time he got to me, his social anxiety was so bad, he would sweat through his clothes in normal everyday interactions. One of the symptoms of Byron's PTSD are night terrors. Night terrors are episodes of screaming and intense fear while sleeping. I was unaware of Byron's past when I first met him. When I introduced myself, I said, I'm not a cop, I'm not a CO, I'm not a PO, and I'm not a judge. I'm your counselor and advocate. I know you've had a horrible past, but you can have an amazing future. I'm not here to stand in your way. I'm here to help you find your way. You're a jet, and I'm the fuel, and let's fly. When I was a child, I didn't want to be a fireman or a race car driver or a baseball player. I wanted to be an advocate for indigenous people. I wanted to fight for them. Everything I watched and learned, they were on the wrong side of justice. As early as I can remember, I've had a heart for helping hurting people. A couple of years ago, I had a client that was a full-blooded Apache. His name was Chayton. He was strong-willed and proud. Chayton spent a lot of time in prison and had a real problem with authority. He tested me at every turn, but I didn't budge. When his non-compliant behavior got to the point where we might have to let him go, I said to him, there isn't anything I wouldn't do to help you. You can push and push, but I'm not going anywhere because we have work to do. The next day, I got a call from Chayton's wife. He said that he's never trusted a male authority figure before, and that I broke through. My dream to serve indigenous people came true. I gave Byron and Chayton hope. You know who else has the power to give hope? HR professionals. I don't think you all choose HR. I think on the way to becoming angels and superheroes, HR finds you. I can't imagine you wanted to be an HR professional in high school, and if you did, you were probably also a resident assistant in college. Such fun killers. No matter how it came to be that you started to work in this field, I promise you were born for it. While obtaining my SHRM Ally certificate, I came across another quote from Wendy Safstrom. We, as HR professionals and people managers, have a moral obligation to take action. Really? You do? As a counselor, I have a moral, ethical, and occupational obligation to take action. It's my job. But is it the responsibility of an HR professional? That struck me, so I looked it up. Look at that. SHRM's body of applied skills and knowledge. It looks like chemistry. And yeah, good memories of science in college. You know what's not on there? It's impressive, but I don't see counselor, therapist, or mental health crisis interventionist. You all have a million tasks, and you're obligated to help people like me? The next question is, do you get paid for it? I'm going to hold that discussion for later. That's one of those hot topics I might not get asked back if we start a mutiny in here. I have 27 years history in the union, so if anybody needs representation. But my tactics are what movies are made of. Listen, you guys are overlooked and undervalued. You do the most, care the most, and are disliked the most. But you are uniquely positioned to make maximum impact. In the beginning, everywhere in between, and if things don't work out, you can offer feedback, guidance, and encouragement at the end. I stand corrected. You are superheroes. Every one of you. You might not wear capes, but you do have the power to save someone's life. There are people all around us that are hurting, and you have the power to help them. You are the heartbeat of your organizations. As an HR professional, you have the power to lead the effort in supporting employee mental health and fostering culture that encourages open conversations around mental health. I'm going to spend the next forever teaching HR professionals about leadership and self-care. I will do anything for an industry that's done so much for me. If there's one piece of advice I can give you to set you up for success, it is to learn how to be a good listener and practice, practice, practice. Practice listening everywhere, especially at home. And I can hear my wife's brain burning because I don't listen enough. I don't listen enough. Her love language is quality time. You gotta listen for quality time. Even when you're listening, you're saying something. You're communicating that the other person has value and they are heard and they understand that they're not alone. When an employee or coworker needs to talk to you, remove distractions. Ask open-ended questions, summarize, and ask clarifying questions. Use your body language to demonstrate that you are listening. Leaning towards a person and nodding are a great way to express empathy and understanding. When I started seeing clients with severe mental illness, I was taken aback. The delusions that I experienced, the thinking, it was beyond anything that I'd heard or experienced. And I was at a loss for how to help my clients. And I verbalized that one day. I said, I wish there was something I could say. And my clients said, you don't need to say anything. Just you being present helps calm my anxiety. When you encounter hurting people, avoid the urge to try and rescue them. Always respect people's autonomy, self-determination, and dignity. So, Twin Cities SHRM is in the lead with conference themes. This one, HR Now, it's our time. You're darn right it is. And I believe it from the bottom of my heart. I knew it when I wrote this presentation in January of 2020. But do you believe it? All day you put people first. And because of who you all are as people, I bet you go home and put your family and friends first too. Now it's your time. And it starts with putting you first. Stephen Covey said that you can't make the golden eggs if you kill the golden goose. He's called you a goose. To be a great people manager, friend, and person, it starts with you. It's an inside job. You're amazing at caring for others. It's time to care for yourself in an amazing way. Here are some suggestions. Make sleep part of your self-care routine. Sleep can have a huge effect on how you feel both emotionally and physically. Not getting enough sleep can cause major health issues. Stay away from caffeine and sugar before you go to bed. And Fruit Loops with marshmallows, don't eat those either. Put your phone to bed so that the screen light and clickbait doesn't keep you up too late. Exercise daily as part of your self-care routine. And I know, doesn't nobody want to hear that, but exercise boosts your mood, relieves stress and anxiety, and not to mention helps shed weight. Eat right for self-care. Eating healthy keeps our minds working and alert. And here's a tough one for y'all. Say no to others and say yes to yourself. This is a hard one, but if you're already stressed and overworked, saying yes to loved ones or coworkers can lead to burnout, anxiety, and irritability. Learn how to politely say no, and you'll start to feel more self-confident. Schedule your self-care time and guard that time with everything that you have. Put it on the calendar. Moments alone can help you ponder the best ways to move forward in your life and keep you grounded. Moments with friends can help you feel more connected and relaxed. The more you can work self-care time into your schedule, the better you'll be able to grow, enjoy your life, and thrive. Be vulnerable. Talk to a therapist about your stress and the heavy burden that's been transferred onto you by the people you serve. Find a mentor or confide in a friend. There's healing in being invulnerable, admitting that you're hurting. I love Brené Brown, by the way. She said, vulnerability is the birthplace of love, belonging, joy, courage, empathy, and creativity. So while going to that new yoga class may feel uncomfortable, you're also opening yourself up to the opportunity to make new friends and learn a new healthy habit. But if you run away from those shaky feelings when they arise, you'll just reinforce the voice inside your head that's saying you're not good enough. Do not run away from the self-care you desperately need working in this field. You are worth it. You do deserve it. It is your time, and it starts now. Twin Cities SHRM, I've told you my story, shared the statistics, and showed you a solution. But I only want you to remember one thing today. You can forget about my story and the statistics. I won't even be sad if you forget about the CARES approach. It's a great set of principles, but it wasn't the solution. You are. You are the solution. It isn't just counselors that give hope. Organizations can give hope. Leaders can give hope. And HR pros can give hope. In 2009, Chrysler was a company on the brink of oblivion. It went through bankruptcy, reorganization, and a government bailout. At a meeting with Chrysler dealers, the CEO rallied his battered troops and said these words. See if it resonates. Those who have lived life through difficulties and have seen the dark days of desperation know that the only way to get through them is by finding the values that are important in life. Rediscovering a sense of belonging to a project, a community, a nation. Embracing hope, looking ahead, and taking your destiny into your own hands. He was channeling what everyone in the organization was feeling, and they were right there with him. The capstone was when he unveiled the new iconic Halftime in America TV spot set to run on Super Bowl Sunday. Clint Eastwood narrated these words.
It's halftime. Both teams are in their locker room discussing what they can do to win this game in the second half. It's halftime in America, too. People are out of work and they're hurting, and they're all wondering what they're gonna do to make a comeback. And we're all scared because this isn't a game. The people of Detroit know a little something about this. They almost lost everything. But we all pulled together. Now Motor City is fighting again. I've seen a lot of tough eras, a lot of downturns in my life, and times when we didn't understand each other. It seems that we've lost our heart at times. The fog of division, discord, and blame made it hard to see what lies ahead. But after those trials, we all rallied around what was right and acted as one. Because that's what we do. We find a way through tough times, and if we can't find a way, then we'll make one. All that matters now is what's ahead. How do we come from behind? How do we come together? And how do we win? Detroit's showing us it can be done. And what's true about them is true about all of us. This country can't be knocked out with one punch. We get right back up again, and when we do, the world's gonna hear the roar of our engines. Yeah, it's halftime America, and our second half's about to begin.
Feels very relevant today. When the lights came back on, the CEO couldn't compose himself. Coming to tears, he concluded with, "Nothing more needs to be said." To get through the difficulties and the dark days of desperation, the CEO didn't say to work more hours, increase productivity, or earn higher profits. He said to focus on values, belonging, community, and hope. That was the recipe for one of America's greatest comeback stories. SHRM, you have the power to make a difference and take destiny into your own hands. People are overworked, undervalued, stressed out, and burnt out. Your employees are hurting, and you do have the power to heal them. Make the mental health of employees your mission, and then sit back and watch the magic. I shared with you that I had bipolar disorder, dropped out of college numerous times, got discharged from the Army, was a felon, and had been incarcerated. It wasn't a hard time. Actually, it was really only 2 days, but Starbucks withdrawal is a real thing. I swore that I'm never going back, but if I do, I'm bringing an espresso machine and pumpkin spice syrup, no doubt. In 2012, I was at the top of the world. I earned both my degrees, had the best job in my union, and got married. When I felt the diploma in my hand, I flashed back to me crying on that bench and dropping out. I burned with the desire to tell every kid who's lost hope that if they get help and treatment, they can succeed. I wanted to use my past to inspire students. I started speaking to colleges and universities. I felt like I was making a difference. Then my bipolar became unhinged. It felt like a runaway train that I tried to slow down, but I could never catch up. Mental illness started taking a toll on my marriage. We fled to California, hoping for a geographical cure. One night we had a fight, and she stormed out. She fell asleep in her car. It was over. When I was leaving, I went to wake her up and tell her the nightmare was over and she could go inside. I looked at her through the window of that car, and I saw her face, and I saw my reflection. She looked exhausted, like she had weathered a 10-year storm. She was dying from prolonged exposure to me. I don't ever want to forget that image. I drove back to Maryland with only what I could fit in my car. I stayed at a sleazy hotel and was evicted when my credit card was declined. I was walking my dog near a dumpster, and I saw a mattress, and I thought about grabbing it because I knew I would need a bed. When I'm not proactive with my mental disorder, I will throw my life in the garbage every time. And just know, if I walk by a dumpster today and see a really nice antique hutch, I'm gonna grab it. I don't have any shame. I thought the mattress was a little too much. My life was horrible. I had recurring nightmares where I saw revolving images of every hurtful thing that I had done. I would wake up to the reality that I was alone. I would lay there shaking and crying, and my dog would lay on top of me, trying to absorb my pain. I wasn't gonna end my life, but I didn't want to live anymore. I was at rock bottom, but at rock bottom, I was just right for God's grace. Over the next 2 years, I put the work in, did the therapy, got my meds right, read everything that I could, and volunteered for my church. I let go of my shame and learned how to love myself. In November 2019, I was the audiovisual production manager for SHRM's Volunteer Leaders Business Meeting. I got a call to assist a presenter. Her name was Mary. In conversation, I mentioned that I wanted to use my story to help people with mental illness. She introduced me to Felix, who led the Second Chance initiative for SHRM. I shared that I used to be a professional speaker and spoke to college students about success. My message was no matter your hurts, your mistakes, or your diagnosis, you could accomplish anything and live a life beyond your wildest dreams. And then I told Felix that I ruined my life and didn't want to live anymore, but I kept fighting, got healthy, and turned it around. That I met a woman named Christina while leading a volunteer event for Mosaic Church in Maryland. I was mesmerized by her eyes. They were full of love and grace. The name of that organization we were serving was called Second Chance. 4 months later, I proposed to my wife at a place dedicated to giving people a fresh start. I rolled up my sleeve and showed Felix my tattoo, Second Chance. Felix ran and pulled Mary out of the session she was speaking in. He said, "Tell her your story." He knew that Mary's brother died an hour earlier. And hearing my story could ease her pain. I was baffled. Mary's grieving. Felix has a million things to do, yet they're both trying to elevate me. Who does that? Human resource professionals do. That's who. Recently, I spoke with Kathy, the director of SHRM Speakers Bureau. She said, "I added you because Mary Shetty wouldn't take no for an answer. It didn't make sense. I was a criminal. I was a cheater. I have mental illness, and I wasn't even a speaker." In October, SHRM asked me to speak at an event. It was the same meeting where 2 years earlier I met Mary. Sometimes things happen in life, and God's the only explanation. When I was asked to give that presentation, I learned everything I could about SHRM. You advocate for untapped talent. You fight for people like me. SHRM is the company of second chances. Out of my love for SHRM, I decided to get a new tattoo. I know it's crazy. And maybe it is. But SHRM took a chance on a reject. And that's crazy. When you find an organization that fights for you and changes your life, you'll fight for them too. All I wanted was a second chance. Where's Katie? Is Katie in the room? Oh, she's in trouble. She's here? Wonderful. All I wanted was a second chance, and Twin Cities SHRM has given it to me. Nothing more needs to be said.